Good afternoon and welcome to the July edition of ProConnect. ProConnect is a platform that welcomes industry professionals to interact and share their knowledge, their experiences on different aspects of smart buildings and the technologies. Today, we are going to be diving into the fundamentals of smart building, or if I have to put it efficiently, we are exploring the concept of what actually makes a building smart. So, what is a smart building? There are many definitions of smart building, but the simplest one would be as it is also known as an intelligent building, which embraces, you can say, advanced technologies and automated processes to actually work along with its operations. So, what are operations? When a building is built, you have building operations which look after its systems. It looks after its data, its securities, and other aspects of the building. So building needs to be communicating to the users. So technologies that help the buildings users to understand what is the building and how you can evaluate the performances of the buildings. It also connects to external informations like the weather data or any kind of informations which is related to the typology of the building. So how did smart buildings evolve? Let's take a moment to look at the history of it. And this is really interesting as I was researching to understand that how did smart buildings actually come into picture? So it actually started way in 1947 when a transistor was invented. Then in 1951, a computer was invented. The first known so-called internet was, came into picture by the US military when they developed something called as ARPANET to connect their computers. That was in 1966. The most turning point in the sustainability field, and that was starting of the energy efficiency, looking at buildings and how was the oil crisis that happened in 1973. US experienced this in 1979, and that's, many aspects of green building actually came into picture. And we started looking at buildings and how the resources could be managed and many aspects of how we can look at buildings which are more sustainable. A personalized computers became popular in 1981. Mobile phone took over in 1984. And there was a property boom which happened in the late 1980s. This all connected with technology. So property and the built environment started getting connected because of the boom in 1980s. Internet became publicly available to every one of us in 1991. And in the early 2000s, that is when internet got connected to buildings. And it started off with the word as smart buildings, where operations were given an important role to it, and internet or any kind of automation came into picture. So this was a very interesting thing which I saw and I studied through the entire cycle of how smart buildings actually got their awareness or prominence what they have in today's world. So so-called intelligent building also was educated by the United Technology Building System, and this made actually the first, you can say, as smart building, which was the City Palace building. In terms of looking at smart buildings, what is the technology or what are the systems that came into picture? So you have the 50s where the first fire alarm implementation happened. There's something called as work saving time systems which came into picture in the early 60s. Then you have the 70s because of the oil crisis, energy conservation, and something called as crime prevention systems also came in. 80s looked at single dedicated systems. So the HVAC systems got a little more, pronounced, and lighting systems came into picture. And integrated, the 90s saw the building level systems or subsystems which could monitor performances. 2000 took over by computers, and today we have AI looking into automation of buildings. So basically, in the 90s, if I have to really look at what kind of innovations happen in the building industry, so we had the 90s and the early 20th century, we saw lightings and elevators. So those aspects were like automated buildings, which actually came into picture. Before that, we did not have this aspect. So that's how buildings started growing taller, because we have elevators, which could be a kind of a technology which we have. Central heating and mechanical ventilation. Uh, Actually, I would say even cooling, because in warm and humid climates like India, we had this systems which were integrated in the building. Now that is also a technology which moved into the building industry. Now the early 70s, early 21st century, where we saw the building management systems, which looked into and where it started looking at different components of buildings. So we are looking at HVAC systems, we are looking at lighting systems, and we are looking at, now it went furthermore of looking at the performance evaluation of these systems and the interconnection of it. So a building uh, as such has become very complex, and these kind of technologies really help us to evolve and understand the data which is coming out of our buildings. So what are the basic elements of a smart building? So the four things I would say is the building, the automations, and the telecommunications. Under services, I would say automated controls, the monitoring, management, and maintaining substations. And the interrelation is intercommunication of these systems, which actually bind the systems and the services together. The global smart building market is really rising high. And as you can see, you have an annual growth of 26.5%, which is really a lot of growth, because the building industry is also growing. But the smart building requirement with the technology is really going high. Just a glimpse of what is a potential market for maybe an energy management system, because the focus is entirely on energy management system. That is a technology. And you can see a steady growth across all the typologies of buildings. You have institutional, office, residential, retail, warehouse. All of them is like moving gradually up. And will see a gradual growth in understanding and the complex systems that can be integrated in a smart building. So I'm welcoming all the panelists today. We have a very good panel of young people who are going to share a lot of experiences from different walks of their profession. So I welcome all of you. Our first panelist, Mamta Rawat. She is a founder and the CEO of a sustainability firm called as Climate Nama. She is an expert in high performance building, climate responsive design, net zero, and she has experience of more than almost 15 years. The most interesting part is she believes in contributing on the larger goal of climate change, and that's a very interesting aspect. Welcome, Mamta.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is Parth. Parth has more than a decade of experience, and he is looking at the business development with FPC Global Consultant. He is expert in digital solutions, and he's worked in different spaces of clients, where it includes banking, financial services, hospitals, airports. And he believes that technology really holds a solution to the future problems of a built environment. Welcome, Parth.
Thanks, Sandhya.
Our third panelist is an architect, and I'm glad to have an architect who will be talking about the design aspect of it, because smart buildings talk more about technology, but the birth of smart building actually starts at the drawing board, and it needs to be incorporated at the design stage. So I welcome Sonal. Sonal has more than 15 years of experience, and she looks at the design development of different projects in a Kiran Kapadia and Architects. She's known as a dynamic leader, and she really enjoys the entire life cycle of projects. Welcome, Sonal. So I would like to ask all of you, start our conversation. What do you think? What are the core components or the technologies that make a building smart?
Hi, and thank you so much to INBAC and to you, Sandhya, for inviting and for having me here. It is glad to connect, at this platform and share our thoughts and experiences. So, as a sustainability professional, usually we divide all the built environment or the buildings in three buckets. So, bucket one, pre-design stage. So, like whatever planning, part of it, aspirations of what goals we are going to put, rest of the things we put up into the pre-design stage. Then we put up the second bucket as design and construction, wherein we are designing, as in all the designers put together, engineering, executing around that part, which comes and then we are commissioning, testing, and then we are putting the building into the third bucket, that is the operational stage of it. And every bucket, we can define the components and the technologies which can make the buildings more smart or sustainable, or maybe I should say the word resilient. So going further, at every stage, let's say when the building is into the pre-design or design and construction stage, we have many technologies, like that is softwares available, that is advanced energy simulation, passive and active simulations, which helps us to understand the behavior of the building at the design stage as only, and then implement all the design strategies in a way that we are able to cater the the operational energy in much better way. So herein also we focus more on the embodied energy or the operational energy, and we come on the construction part over here. And then again we use many technologies which helps us in integrating in making the building more sustainable. And when we go to the functionality part, that is the operational part, then we have a list of technologies available, AI available, starts with building management system or the energy management system. So integrating all the components together and understanding what data we have, making further use of data with some data analysis, and putting the action plan for whatever goal we have. Let's say as sustainability a consultant, we will put such sustainable goal further over there, and hence we make further action plan for it. So as a conclusion, I'm a big fan of Parle G biscuit, and we know that Parle G biscuit or any biscuit or any packaged food or has a label onto it, and which says what is the energy into it, what is the calorie content, and how is it made and all. And we have a trend going on, label padhega India. So as professionals, we are making buildings, but we don't have those labels. So I feel that when we talk about a smart building, we need to talk about those labels on the building, whether it is in any bucket, whether it is in any phase of the built environment. And to start with that, we need to start with the life cycle analysis of the building and take those precautions in the design stage itself.
Great. Thank you, Mamta. Maybe Parth, would you like to add?
Yeah, surely, Sandhya. I'm glad to be here with esteemed panelists, and I'm thankful to INBAC for this opportunity. Right. See, what I believe, smart is a very relative word. Okay. I mean, Sandhya, you are just showing, the evolution of smart buildings. Okay. So, what was smart 10 years back has changed now. Okay. Right. So, today people talk about, digital building as a smart. Okay. Maybe in future there will be one more definition around smart buildings. Okay. Right. So, what I believe is, the core components which actually enables or qualifies any building under smart category or a digital category is, first and foremost thing is, the strategic thinking which comes from the leadership team of the clients. Okay. Beyond, without this, uh, there cannot be any kind of excellence achieved at your built environment. Okay. Second component, which is very much important, is your interoperable systems. Until and unless your systems are interoperable, you won't be able to even cross the barrier of gathering the complete building data. Okay. Then comes your protocol agnostic platforms. Okay, many a times what happens is that we have faced, there are powerful platforms which will integrate few of the system data, but then they face challenges in integrating few other systems, and there can be a number of reasons for that. It can be a proprietary protocol, it can be a protocol compatibility issue, there can be a number of reasons behind it. Okay, but a truly protocol agnostic platform will enable that all the data gets gathered. Okay. And the final component which actually binds everything together is, the converged IT network, which is required to connect each and every building systems and devices, okay, into a
Mm.
single network that will, kind of enable the communication. Now, as far as technology goes, technology has evolved for buildings. Okay. And being a technology consultant and giving the advices on a day-to-day basis to our customers, right? We do talk around a good amount of technologies nowadays in built environment. Okay. But if we have to talk very specific core components, okay, then I believe cloud computing, you don't have any other option. You have to go with cloud computing. IoT is a must. Okay. And you also can look into BIM or digital twin capabilities. Now, majority of the customers feel that BIM and digital twin is only for the operational stage. That is not the right conclusion. BIM is utilized as a smart planning tool for pre-construction stage also. It helps in reducing your waste. It helps in reducing your time. Okay. And it overall it reduces cost. Okay, so it has actually applications at both the end, pre-construction and post-construction, right? And obviously, I mean, during construction also, right? So these are the few technologies that can be utilized by building owners to enable their building under smart grid.
I think that's very well said, that there is no one definition for a smart building, and as building industry is evolving, the definitions also are evolving. So that's very well said, Parth. I am moving to Sonal. Sonal, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, technology, maybe it'll be a a part of the whole process for me, the way I see it, being an architect. But like Parth rightly said, that if we define four major aspects, or the four key components of what probably would lead us to a a good design, or a good building, per se, I think the way I see it from my side is, I think a good and a strong and a very well defined brief is the start to everything. I think secondly, that leads us to our next stage. There are various, technologies that could come at any, all of these four stages, the way I see it. But I'll not speak of the technology that goes in, but broadly the part where we have the brief leads us to a place where we start thinking of design, or as a group of stakeholders, you need to have a correct understanding of what goes, or what you would require to achieve this goal, or this brief that has been set in. Once you have that understanding, you would know what are the people, what are the expertise that you would require at this stage to come in and work together. Once you have all of that, and you cross that stage of design, and once something is there on board, I think a very important part of this is execution, which we it's very, very crucial. We may have great strategies in place, but there is a huge thing out there as execution, which we have to do to make it realize. So a lot of emphasis is required on execution, on construction innovation, and various technologies today are available on a day-to-day basis, which we use at our sites, which get implemented, which are getting better by the day. So all of those come in play to actually realize where you started from and what you wanted to build. And once you have built that, I think analyzing it and looking back at it to get better at it for the next one is very important, which once upon a time, or previously, people were not approaching it in that way. But today it's very important, because the right benchmark setting, the right, goal setting for the other parallel projects that we have to do. We have to, the clients also have to do, and we also have to look back and do that. So broadly, these are the 4 areas which kind of helps you orient yourself towards making a smart building and maybe making a better one the next time.
That's a very important point which you highlighted is the execution. You may have a lot of strategies, but the execution of what you have actually had on design of basis needs to be really emphasized. So well said, Sonal. Um, Sonal, I have another question for you. You know, what do you think are the emerging trends for a smart building design? What do you think as an architect, doing projects?
Okay. So speaking of smart buildings, like, they used to, they were always there. If you look at the broader definition of smart buildings, in some or the other manner, they always existed, relevant to that particular time. In the past, architects probably used to do a lot of this and, not label it as a smart or intelligent building, but by their way of approach, bring all of these components together in as a comprehensive solution to build a building, or to, build a built form. So some or the other manner of this smart integration always existed. Currently, today, what we are speaking of is focusing more on the technology integration or the IoT integration, which is a further advanced part of it in today's time. High level of integration with people and planet in focus, I think, is seen very evidently across all projects today, which kind of is a very, very strong emerging trend, and all of us experience that on a day-to-day for all projects. There's a great deal of awareness resulting in huge emphasis on sustainability today, and is shaping all disciplines in some or the other manner, because there are multiple various disciplines coming together to, make this happen. And when you set sustainability, or when you set a larger goal right in front of you at the beginning, uh, everything has to shape together or get, work together to achieve that. So all disciplines, irrespective of architecture, interiors, say structure, or other various disciplines of MEP, when we say there are like multiple, breakups of MEP that we can speak of in terms of technology and engineering systems that are required for a building to be functional. So all of these small aspects get affected and get in some or the other manner shaped up to reach that end goal and to come together to make your building behave smartly the way you want it to behave. This is also leading in general to a huge amount of innovation in the building material industry. So compared to some few years back, today we have many more options. Today, even the building industry, the material industry, or the vendor network that we speak of, they are getting, they are pushed to go beyond their limits. Their boundaries are getting pushed by this whole emphasis and awareness about getting things more efficient, getting things more greener, looking at it in a different manner. The whole planning of the whole building design and execution has much more evolved in today's day. So it's not like before. So that kind of also impacts these other ancillary industries, and they also have to come out of their comfort zone, and they also have to, come out with new solutions to these problems. So that there is a lot of change that we see over there also, which is also some sort of an emerging trend, and it also in turns helps all of us professionals to achieve this kind of a better standard of building design and better execution standard of building design. And actually, in today, in the tier 1 cities, the kind of cities that we currently are, like Mumbai, Bangalore, or any other tier 1 city, I think any good project or any A grade kind of a project, I mean, it won't be unfair to say that is already a smart building, or it's already a smart design in the making. So
Right.
so that is it's like a very how do I say, it's become a pretty default in today's market, in today's time.
Right.
whether we call it a smart building or not, but the kind of and the level of integration that we are encountering and what we are doing for our projects is kind of very, very much there. And it is a very strong, recent emerging trend, and it's quickly caught on to everyone. I think all the clients, also client teams from various kinds. There are developers, there are fund management institutions, there are other kind of clients or the corporates that we work with. They are strongly leaning towards this, and they are kind of focusing very much on this approach. So it's a very strong trend which has come around, and it's already there in a very short time.
Great. So, Sonal, that's a nice point, that design process has evolved over a period of time,
Yes.
uh, actually involving a lot of more stakeholders than mere an
Yeah.
architecture. Design scope has widened so much, and it is no longer limited only to designing, but looks at all integration of services. And fortunately, automation or other technologies is also by default, so that is a part of the design process. So that's
Right.
that's that's a very important point. um Mamta,
I
how do
just
you
want to
think?
add,
Yeah, sure,
Sandhya,
Parth.
I just want to
Yeah.
add, I just want to add on what Sonal actually told. And I actually agree with her. I mean, see, just 5 years back, there were very few LEED certified buildings. But today,
Hmm.
while we encounter or while we interact with any customer, okay, not only LEED, okay, people are going for pre-approved designs for LEED, well, and now in India, even the smart building certifications are picking up. So, like there is Spire, there is Wired Score. Okay, these are few smart building certifications which are currently, there available as a global standards, and this are also getting picked up, by our customers
Hmm.
today whenever they come up with any kind of new project. Okay, so the trends are picking up in that direction, and everything is getting captured at the design stage itself. Even before, they start the excavation, this plannings are done.
Correct. This is like long before the excavation. Actually, it's like really long before excavation or anything. Even if you touch the ground, or even if you touch the site. So it's like a well thought of approach. And the good thing that we see here is it is coming also from the client side. It's not the architect who is trying to push for it and convince the world to go a better way, a better integrated way, but it's the clients who are today realizing they're seeing a huge value in looking at this in a different way, which helps all of us, which I think is the big change, is what we see. Otherwise, traditionally, if you see the clients, or even for that matter any kind of developers, I mean, the focus would only be the profits, the focus would only be mostly on the cost or the placemaking, or a specific image building for a client. Those were the focus areas for them at once upon a time. Today I think they are moving beyond all of that, and they are
Hmm.
placing sustainability, they are placing this kind of integrated approach to support their people and the planet at the core of it, and everything else has stepped back, which changes the whole way we look at building design and the whole process of building design. The it's a different it's a different ball game altogether. So I think that is a huge change that we see. Maybe that is also one of the the trends that is not emerging, but it's already there. But that's one of the new things that we see over some time.
True,
Okay.
true. So as Parth said, a few years back, sustainability or anything related to certification was not popular, and now it's just a
Correct.
way of life.
Today we speak of certifications on day one, like
Hmm.
it comes with the brief,
True.
which itself speaks for it, that they've already looked at it, they've already done their own studies, and they come with it. They have certain options and they evaluate with the team, but they are already aware of whether you want to go for certification, whether you want to apply for net zero. I mean,
Hmm.
these are mainstream everyday discussions from very, very early on, from the very first time that we happen to speak to a client about a project. These are spoken of and very discussed with a lot of enthusiasm and impetus to be, taken up by the architect.
True. So, Mamta, you've been working in the field of sustainability, which was a nascent field some years back, but it's now very popular. So, how do you think smart buildings really contribute to the large picture of reducing carbon emissions or a carbon footprint for a building?
Yeah, sure. So, if we go with the stats, at present, the built environment contributes to almost 40% of the carbon emission. And as we are going ahead, I think this is making a lot of difference as designers or the facilitators or the operational part of the building, like how we are contributing to the carbon emissions. So number one, if we just go around the data again, like as we were just talking about the green buildings and rest of the things about it. So we have almost 14 billion square feet of green footprint in India at present, and with almost 10,000 products which are, let's say, eco-labeled, or the technologies available for all of us to design the building smart or operate the buildings in a smarter way, or maybe in a more less carbon emitting way. So as we go ahead, I think it is making a lot of sense in terms of understanding, first of all, the life cycle analysis of the building at the design stage itself, so which helps us in reducing the carbon in a much better way in terms of getting the right data and making an action plan further onto it. Then obviously, going with the stringent standards and the codes, maybe with as the green building ratings, or maybe as we were talking about, many ratings are there at present, and even the well-being ratings, because these doesn't, we are not just talking about from the resource point of view or maybe the carbon emissions point of view. We are also making buildings for the occupants as humans, so it obviously helps in terms of reducing the operational cost and even increasing the productivity or human comfort, so onto it. So from all those point of view, it makes a lot of difference in terms of designing, constructing and operating buildings in a carbon, which helps us into reducing the carbon as well. And going further on the operation side, IoT or the smart buildings, it connects the entire buildings in a way that we get the right data in place, and with those right data we can take the right measures to account for, put the right responsibilities to because it is a continuous improvement process. So as we go further, we put up, like, where are we put up the benchmarks. We, let's say, we put up the we start with the energy performance index, the EPI scores of any building, and we start at least from there, understand where are we go further, next, and this is we are going towards in terms of our zeal of reducing the carbon from the built environment.
Well said. That's a good point. What you said is, we look at carbon footprinting of a building, which is a non-active part of it, but it's also important to look at the occupants who actually use these spaces.
Yes.
So that is also a contribution which needs to be looked at in some kind of a measurement or a matrix to understand, because that's also contributing to the entire building. So that's a very valid point. Parth, what do you think? What is the economic rationale behind investing in a smart building technology?
There are many actually, So, economic point of view, any customer has a good amount of advantage in investing in smart building technology. Actually, you know, if I have to point out, few tangible economic benefits, right? So one of them is reduction in the operations cost. You reduce a good amount of OPEX by, investing in technologies like data analytics and IoT, or even digital twin for your day-to-day operations. Okay. It also improves, your productivity by keeping the comfort levels of your buildings to to an optimal level for your occupants. Okay. You are actually, improving the productivity also of the occupants. and that is something, which gets converted into better revenues for you. Okay. It also improves, your user experience. That is how a person is interacting with the building, or rather, how building is interacting with that particular person. Okay. A simple example is that, if I give you an access card and you have to, kind of swipe that access card, and let's say 7, 8 different points, okay, and you have to wait in line, your experience would be, too much boring, or I would say, you'll feel tired. Okay. But if I tell you that, you will carry a tag, okay, but there won't be any kind of barriers that will stop you while accessing the premises, and you will have a seamless, transition to your office floor. Okay. Even the elevators will be available for you in advance. You don't have to wait for your elevator also, right? That is something, which contributes to a user experience. Okay. Apart from that, smart buildings today are actually, helping customers to improve their ESG score also. They are helping, smart building helps a customer to reduce their carbon footprint, as Manta, explained, during various stage of the building life cycle. Okay. And even their greenhouse emissions. Okay. So all in all, while we talk about climate resiliency in today's world, while we say that the building has to be climate resilient, smart building is something that is actually, giving you all kinds of data to make it climate resilient. And if that is the scenario, okay, and final outcome is that you get a better ESG score, then at the end of the day, it will be better rents, better revenue generation from those investments. So everyone should, think of getting into smart buildings today itself.
Yeah. So that's well said. That smart buildings are actually there is an economic benefit, and even if right now the investment may look, or excuse me, may look a little high, but in the longer run, it really allows you more benefits, and I think those benefits are absolutely tangible, which can be measured. So I think any developer would look at more of tangible benefits, and I think that will be a very clear picture. Mamta,
Can I
what do
add
you think?
something?
Yeah,
Sorry.
please go ahead.
So, speaking of, I think economics, Parth is the expert here, but I'll add my two small bits. So, speaking of economics, and I think the way we see our clients looking at this whole approach, or looking at smart buildings, or intelligent buildings, or even sustainable buildings for that matter, I think there are some things which are also helping them. One is that, like I said before, from the building industry, like from the vendor base, they are also getting more better options to look at, which are not very very expensive. Like some time back, the cost of a green material or a green product, even if I want to try and achieve a certification, and if I have to insist on be insist to be used in my project, or I specify it in my BOQ, or I specify it on my drawings, probably would be shot down by a client or a developer, saying that it's too expensive, and or it's not very much easily available, and then we can't go that route, let's go and do something else about it. I mean, let's try and achieve that point somewhere else. This is like our this used to be a usual talk, or plan from their side. But today we don't come across much of that. What does that say? That says that they are able to easily find the kind of things that they need to make a sustainable building or a good smart building, with possible various options between vendors, which they are able to smartly cost evaluate, and reach a solution at their end, or find a suitable person to do that job at their end that works for them in their economics as well. So which kind of gives a good backing to them, that this is a route, okay, can be taken, and we are going to be able to find people to do this job. The other thing is, speaking of rents, or speaking of the user preference. So commercial building, like Parth said, that there are a lot of touch points, or there are a lot of seamless integration spaces, seamlessly integrated spaces that we emphasize on. The design emphasizes on all of these to make the user experience top notch, top class, which gives them a better rental, which adds to the image of that particular typology and particular brand of building that a developer is trying to create. Speaking of rents, also today a lot of MNCs, or even for that matter, simple people like you and me, who are going to go and buy a house, are ready to pay more if the building is certified better, if it is reaching a certain level of, sustainability certification. So that is also another kind of a help that they are getting, or they are, it is pushing them to go in that direction furthermore, which makes the whole economic kind of work in some way, or at least it's not as difficult or impossible as it used to look earlier.
Thanks, Sonal, for your inputs. So, Mamta, can you add some thought process of your, through what your experiences, as both Parth and Sonal said that clients are quite open in accepting these smart technologies or integration of smart building solutions for a building, right from the design solutions. Economics also is what Parth pointed out at that, in the longer run, when you look at the life cycle of an entire project, it plays a very important role. So if you can share some experiences that, these challenges of how to adopt technology or even mindsets, because the trend is definitely picking up, but there we do have some kind of resistance coming from clients to really adapt these kind of aspects into. Like, you've been working in the field of sustainability, and as you said, people were not aware of doing certifications or any kind of sustainability. It was a few years back, but now it is a way of life. But in the same manner is what smart technologies and smart building aspects are getting evolved. So, what have been your experiences? Can you share some views?
Yeah, sure. So I think just a couple of days before Indian Green Building Council celebrated 20 years in India, and this marks about that the green building movement, or let me put up in a smart building movement, is itself just 20 years old in India. So and the mindsets or the capacity or the part of it is like the points we were discussing, as Sonar was saying, as Path was saying, that almost 5 years back or 10 years back, or as we go back into the timeline, so these questions were discussed at that time. Right now we have multiple driving force to take our actions in a way which is more by default making us more green, more resilient, more smart. Maybe just to start with, like in, let's say, by the global targets that we have to double energy efficiency by 2030. So we are just 6 years over there, and if you have to double energy efficiency, that means you have to talk about smart, you have to talk about resiliency around that. So, and it obviously includes new buildings and it includes existing buildings both. So then as we see the longer targets, as let's say if we talk about just India, as we have to be a net zero country by 2070. And if we have to be a net zero country, that means obviously the built environment, which is putting a 40% into the carbon emissions, has to be net zero in all the means. So how do we cater further onto it? So this is what goes on into the discussions of almost all the management, all the business houses. I am so sure that almost all the big giants or all the big companies or even the MSMEs have put up a sustainability team in house to understand and to make actions, to report ESGs, to work on action plans for their assets and even the business for working together. So I feel like this is a driving force. This is not a question mark. That you have. So it is a responsibility as a global citizen or Indian citizen, to get aware by yourself, like if, or maybe to aware your circle network, get back to the society in creating the right awareness, that how we can make more smart buildings, green buildings, so our built environment better together, or less carbon emissions onto it. And as we do that, obviously the capital cost or the finance is the question marks. However, again, we are taking a help, let's say from the investors. Like investors are themselves now nowadays asking about, like, if this is not green, they are not putting up their money into the funds. So this is like this is becoming a trend right now. If you go for a project, you are the banks are providing, the financing schemes are there available for that. And there are a lot of people available who are helping us out in terms of like different technologies, different different advisories around it, and in-house and even external around that part. So I feel this is no more a question. This is like this is a time for all of us to be more responsible, for all of us to put the actions in place, so that we are in business. So I feel like especially wherever our clients are into in the mode of GHG accounting, and if you're falling under the scope 3 of contributing towards it, so if you are not into reducing your carbon emissions already, you will be replaced very soon. So I would not like to make this statement, but I think this is right to say that if we are not making it sustainable or smart now, so I think we have to change, so that we are in business and we are in good business together as we go ahead.
True, true. This is very interesting. The conversation is really getting. I'm really happy to learn from all three of you that the design processes have accepted changes, value additions in the field of sustainability, in the field of different technologies incorporated, and as Parth says that the definitions are evolving as buildings are evolving. It's nice to hear from you that clients are treating these kind of, and their mindsets are actually changed, and you really don't have to, as a consultant, really work hard in asking them to please accept this. So this is really interesting. So then, what do you think? What lessons can be learned from projects which have been executed? What do you think the projects which you have executed, which are so-called technology savvy or smart or maybe sustainable? What can be some pointers where you can share with all of us? You're on mute.
Okay, so from all the projects of this nature that I've worked upon with my experience, one I can say that one thing that emerges out very, very strongly across is that the integrated design approach is the key to all of this. For example, in the past, I've seen on my projects only core consultants used to work for a very long time till a design is processed to a certain stage. Like an architecture structure MEP was understood to be enough to go on and process a design till a design development stage of the project, which is actually the closure of design. If you understand it, it's actually a stage where the design closes. It's a closure of design on any project process. So anything else that comes after this is kind of in the process sense an afterthought, or a plug-in, or some kind of a compromise on either of them, either what is being plugged in or on the architecture that is thought of. So this was the kind of overall reading of all the projects earlier. But now if you see, there are a lot of specialized consultants which were later plugged in before, which are brought in on the first day today. So today all specialized consultants and agencies, I mean, they may not even be consultants, sometimes there are agencies, sometimes there are, you know, some kind of very, very specific supports that you need for integration of a particular system into place. Or even for that matter, like we were speaking of some sort of, you know, some way of like what Parth was pointing out, that you know, while a person enters your building, for him to have a seamless experience to reach till his office, it may sound very simple, but it is not as much. So you have to bring in a lot of 3-4 different kind of things here together, where your security system, your, you know, where your vertical transport, where the lifts work, and a lot of other aspects have to come together and really make it work in that way. So they have to come in much before into design, or they have to be specified and looked into at a very microscopic level much before. So that which happens today, which happens now, and hence the difference is seen, and hence we are able to do it the way that we are able to do. So today all of these agents will come on board at a very early start, which enables the possibility of integrated design approach. I mean, unless everybody comes together at that point of, I mean, there is no possibility of this to happen. So first and foremost, everybody has to come together, and then opens a possibility of this integrated design approach in its true sense, which is very important to bring about a successful, intelligent, or a smart building. To get the best of disciplines and integrate them meaningfully, I think you need a mechanism, a continual thread, something that starts from the beginning and ends beyond the end. And I think that is where the crucial role of design management comes in play. That's how I see it. So we are there from the beginning of the conceptualization till the end of the execution, and even post that. So where the whole process is managed, where all of this integration is managed. So that becomes, you know, like a key defining factor to me in you know, all of these projects that I have seen. Wherever that fails, or wherever that is partially, you know, happening, and partially it is some other way, the results will not be, you know, as efficient. We are talking about making it more and more efficient and setting the bar higher and higher. Then this has to become a default. This has to become a default process for anything that we want to do, you know, on any of the typologies of smart buildings, or any of the good buildings that we want to do, you know, in today's time. And this requires all the stakeholders to come together. It is not just about architecture, or it's not just about the integration or the technology, but it is a holistic approach. So all stakeholders need to be engaged in this whole process for it to, you know, make sense. I think 5 things, just to summarize this, 5 things that you should pay attention to, I feel, if you want to make a smart building. I mean, just to put it in a nutshell, in a 5 bullet points. One is a well thought of brief by the client. I think that's very important in my opinion. The second is the correct benchmarking. Unless you have the correct benchmarking or what you're trying to build. Now, when I say benchmarking, it is not just about architectural benchmarking or a sustainability goal setting. It is a whole, you know, benchmarking of all aspects of this, whether it be energy efficiency, whether it be, you know, what kind of systems you want to bring in, whether it be what kind of architecture you are looking for, or if you have any kind of a reference or something else in mind against which this needs to be seen. So benchmarking things correctly, at, you know, which mostly happens at a client's office, or mostly is a strategic call taken at their end and is processed internally. I think the correct benchmarking always helps everyone else after this coming into this you know, into this project, or this whole exercise, to bring the correct value, to suggest the right things. We need that benchmarking. So that is benchmarking. And then post benchmarking, once everybody is on board, the kind of right goal setting, because all benchmarkings may not work for your project that you are speaking of. So the benchmarking has to translate into a goal setting for this particular project, or this particular you know, exercise that is on board for all the stakeholders. After that, the design ideation comes. So the fourth is the design ideation and involvement by all stakeholders. on all decisions, because all decisions finally orient you and help you achieve what you have set before in the previous stages. And lastly, I think a very efficient execution by implementing construction innovation is what kind of sums it all. It kind of brings it to reality, and kind of, that's where everything actually becomes alive. So
True.
those 5 things, I think, to me are very important, as a whole process.
Interesting. That's a very good summary to take back and think about it. And I'm glad the design process has evolved to such a, such a micromanagement level. Parth, what do you think? What would be the future of smart building henceforth?
Oh, future is bright. But if I have to actually describe it in a couple of words, then we can see a completely AI-enabled buildings in next decade to evolve in a big way in India. This has already started outside India. There are good AI-enabled building available in Middle East and US and Singapore. Okay, now I'm hoping that it will pick up in India too, right? So I see an AI-enabled building which will be self-sufficient in terms of everything. Okay, and will be able to cater to the building's needs. Okay, or occupants' needs well in advance. Okay, and will be able to ensure that there is no harm to climate because of its day-to-day operation. And that's how I see the buildings will be evolved, and this will be driven through, first of all, there are mandates which are getting on the customers or the end users. Okay, or and I feel that there will be some kind of mandate which will come from government also. See, today, when government says that India will be net zero by, let's say, 2070, 2040, whichever may be the timeline. Okay. But in order to do that, government will also require support from everyone in, across the country to ensure net zero practices. And if that is the scenario, sooner or later, we will have some kind of regulations from government also to encourage, climate resilient and net zero buildings in our country, right? So all those things will happen definitely with the help of technology, right? And I see, AI coming up in a very big way over the next decade.
Great. That's a very good point. Even in the last ProConnect, one of the panelists has highlighted that the only gap which is right now in the smart building industry taking up is that government oriented initiatives or funding or any aspect of it is yet to arrive. But yeah, looking at that larger goal of contributing, being net zero, or reducing the carbon emissions, the policymakers will have to move some aspects and really introduce to make that big change, which is looking at. So as Mamta also said, you need to work smart because we just have another 6 years to finish. So don't work hard, work smart. That's a very important aspect.
True. True.
All of you have been working more than a decade in the industries, and you must have experienced many projects. So maybe you can share some examples of projects, case studies, just to give us an example of how technology is being integrated in different aspects of all through the entire life cycle of a project. Maybe I start with you, Parth, please.
Yeah,
Mm,
sure. So I won't be taking names specifically, but I can
mm,
give references, right? So in India itself, we have good references. So there is one airport that is operating for quite a time now, a fully integrated airport, and you can say one of the busiest airport in India, right?
mm,
They have integrated close to 70 different systems which are
mm.
running, in that airport. Okay. And it runs on a single server. It runs
Oh,
on a single server. Okay.
lovely.
So we are actually talking about not only our day-to-day operational technology systems, we are talking about integrating even airport systems. Okay, so like, passenger information, the airport operational database, okay, the boarding bridge, okay, entire airport IT systems is also integrated into a single platform. Okay, and they are utilizing it to, track occupancy levels. They are tracking the energy levels. Okay, they are actually doing the baseline tracking for energies over there. Okay, they are also, utilizing it to generate optimal set points for the comfort levels. Okay, so it's a true gem that we have in India. Okay, but like this, there are many other projects. As I said, there is an AI-enabled building which is already live in Middle East. Okay, that takes care of the users right from when they start from their home.
Hmm.
Before you reach the facility, you get a notification that following parking slot has been allotted to you today.
Hmm.
Once you reach your building gate, you get directed to the nearest elevator which is available, and brought down on ground floor for you. Okay, every request that you want to make, you can just say it to your system, and it gets registered. You don't have to scroll through software to apply leave. You just say that I want to apply leave for so and so date, and the message is sent to your manager. The meeting notes gets captured automatically. Everything gets captured, and it is sent to all the recipients as soon as the meeting is over. Right. So it's an AI enabled building based out of Middle East, okay, which is doing wonders. In another scenario, there is one more good case that I came across, which is in Singapore. Okay. So there is something called as, code blue in hospitals. Okay. So just to simplify things, code blue is whenever any patient who is, going through a critical care in a hospital, okay, if emergency arises, patient goes into shock or any other thing, okay, a code blue is generated. And what
Hmm.
is code blue? Code blue is actually calling for an emergency help. So
Hmm.
all the hospital stakeholders, nurses, doctors, support staff, logistics, pharmacy, everything gets, on high alert. Okay.
Hmm.
And immediately, what happens is that everyone rush towards the patient. Okay. So one of the busiest hospital in Singapore and one of the, very prominent hospital in Singapore, they came up with a solution to reduce the response time of any code blue scenario from 5 minutes to 1 minute. From 5 minutes to 1 minute. So
Hmm.
they came up with solution of integrating too many things, okay,
Hmm.
in their hospital. So first of all, the emergency support system, which is actually helping the patient, gets integrated to the building system. Second, the moment code blue is generated, or any alarm rises, doctors, nurses, pharmacies, everyone gets an alert simultaneously. Third, the elevators, they get emergency override from the access cards of this particular staff. So the moment they will ask for that elevator, it will be available for them immediately. Okay. Third, the air conditioning, the lighting, and other things, are given a command to kind of, improve the environment in which, the patient is. Okay. So reducing this time, the the pharmacy guy will keep the medicine ready. The moment nurse is there, they just have to pick the medicine and get to the location. So all of this thing, thought well, integrated, and now they have reduced time from 5 minutes to 1 minute. Maybe they will improve it further more. Okay, right. Obviously, the 1 minute is more in a way that people have to travel. Now, travel time, it will take that time, right? If you are going from first floor to fifth floor, it will take that much time. But maybe they will come up with some more improvement, right? So there are good examples, going on across the globe and even in India. Okay. Which are to be looked upon while actually creating or coming up with your own building.
Interesting. Time is used as a metrics of measurement for automation. That's very nice examples you've shared. It's enlightening. Mamta, what are your experiences?
So I'll just share some data so that it helps us in understanding, the criticality of projects we are talking about. So as I just mentioned, that we are at 14 billion square feet of green footprint in India at present. And we have been talking about only green and smart buildings, but we are, right now, like, we are actually focusing more on net zero buildings. So we have actually divided those net zero, carbon into three main components, that is net zero energy, net zero water, and net zero waste. So if I just talk about IGBC, I think almost 350 organizations had pledged to be net zero, on 22nd April, almost couple of years back on World Earth Day. And almost 350 organizations are working towards, how can they be net zero carbon, not only energy, water, waste, and all components, as we go further onto it. And as on today, the statistics is almost 118 projects are registered, for net zero, and almost 62 projects are already certified with net zero. And from this, thing, it is like, it includes, airports, it includes almost all the buildings, sectors. So it can be commercial building, residential, we actually make it into three, 2 3 components, whether that is the building into design and construction, or where building in operation or maintenance, whether building is interior design, or it is just a building level or a master level. So whatever component we are into, or whatever sector we are into, hospitality, healthcare, retail, almost everyone is into all sort of projects. If you want me to name one project, maybe we can just start, with the IGBC headquarters, at Hyderabad. So the movement started with 20,000 square feet, and now we are at, almost 11.8 billion square feet for IGBC only. So anybody can visit that head office and understand how green IGBC Platinum and a net zero project is into function. So we have multiple projects almost in all parts of India, including Mumbai, Chennai. So we can get the list, and visit, understand, learn from all of them, and implement, in all our projects, and do actions, and go forward, to contribute our best towards that.
Great, great. Sonal?
Yeah, my thoughts on this are that technology and all these other technology based systems that we speak of would be advancing every other day. There is a better version available every next day and the next day of it. But the way we see is the core of this lies at the approach. The core of this lies at the basic concept which is created as a solution to, you see, design is finally a solution to a problem at a very basic level of any typology, whether it be a commercial project or whether we speak of a developer oriented residential project or a very large township. Basically, to solve this, the approach that is set, the concept which is set at the very beginning, kind of guides this whole process in a much more meaningful way, where all of these things come together, to serve their part of the integration or their
Any
part of the
examples you like
technology.
to give of projects?
So, for example, like for residential project, if we speak of, probably the technology integration is that way limited, because a lot of it is resident occupied spaces,
Hmm.
so they are to be given away to the residents. It's only the other part, which is the electromechanical functional things, or certain limited amount of HVAC which happens at the lobbies, or which, maybe the vertical transport, which is the lifts. Maybe these are the components where technological integrations come in play, and they stay with the building for the longest time, which again helps either the society, or before that the developer, to optimize on efficiencies and also translate it to an optimal economic gain. So
Hmm.
that is one aspect of it. But when we see residential buildings, a large part of it, all of these units which are going to give away to people,
Hmm.
there you don't have any control on the on the energy being used up, or where you don't have much control over a lot of things that happen post occupancy. So what do we do? So as a part of design, you would dig deeper, you would look at making these making the spine of this design strong enough, maybe getting more ventilation for each of the units, so that eventually whoever the user comes uses less of HVAC. It's a very indirect way of orienting the user towards this, because you don't have the real control on it. But it is something which we need to dig deeper, and we need to really look into at that level now, than just limiting it to the MEP, or limiting it to the areas where we have control on, and we are trying to see what are the optimal and better ways of functioning it. So we are looking at that kind of a small level of detail also, to come into the picture, to be the mainstream of the concept, or maybe sometimes even become the deciding factor for why a certain master plan is oriented in a certain way, or why only a certain number of units could be placed on a certain floor plate to enable this to happen. So it kind of it is the architect, or it is this consortium of all the stakeholders together at a much early stage, who can define these things, and actually bring about that change. Because when we speak of carbon footprint, when we speak of reducing energies, it is not just limited to the one who's paying the bills, right? It is also, it is a holistic approach. We are speaking of everyone who's going to come and take up that space and use it. So in commercial buildings also, we see that there are a lot of tenant spaces which are to be leased out, where you don't have as much control on to the energy consumption there. But there, how we smartly plan the facades, how we benchmark the correct kind of HVAC, how we built in certain other aspects, or make them available for them, or we have the shafts or the backbone ready for them to plug in, so that they are able to receive all the much more advanced routings and connectivities if they seek to. So these are the things which have to come into design, to make it work, to make it effectively reach a point of having lesser carbon footprint, and reach a point of contributing themselves to a larger goal like that. So I think on the design front, things we have started, and I think everybody has, looking inwards and going beyond the usual standard of detail that you would go into to make these things work. So it's not really limited to certain benchmark things that you set in the beginning, but you go further on, you further dissect it to a smaller level, to even get into small things like air circulations and
Hmm.
ventilation, and all of that.
Thank you. This has been really enlightening conversation, and there's a lot of things which I have got to know from all three of you. Uh, just to summarize, it's very interesting that the definition of smart building doesn't really exist, but it evolves as the building industry is evolving. Uh, said, as Parth pointed it out. It's nice to see that all of the stakeholders are the main decision makers are really open to this kind of integration of smart technologies, and they understand that there is a tangible benefit, even if it is at the end of the project or the end of the life cycle. It is nice that an architect is looking at that what happens at the end of the life cycle, which is an operation, is actually thought at the beginning of the concept of a or an evolution of a building. That is very nice integrated design approach, which is being highlighted most of the time. There are many stakeholders which are contributing now, and it is no longer limited to even one aspect of a stakeholder, but the decision making has been now divided equally and is responsible on all the stakeholders. That's lovely to understand. Smart buildings have to be sustainable buildings. The definition of sustainability has now widened. It is grown from certification to really understanding net zero, or looking at a larger goal of how the building industry is contributing to the carbon emission or the climate change, which the whole world is focusing on. Thank you very much for all of you for your time and the conversation which we have had. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandhya, and thank you, INBAC, for this opportunity.
Yes.
It was great to be
Yeah,
here
thanks,
and
Sandhya.
speak to all of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
See you.
much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.